Good morning. First topic I want to just address is our homework. I do have a PowerPoint that's going to be associated with this video. Chapter E, the online homework through My Lab Mastering, is due September 3rd, 2020. Today's topics will be in finishing up section E2, and these topics will include the use of metric prefixes. Now, some of you have familiarity with metric prefixes, but we're going to go over metric prefixes because the metric prefix is used to represent decimal placement when we're using a base unit, a basic unit, and it's based upon factors of 10. The SI system uses metric prefixes in a similar fashion that we may have learned of for metric system. Now, one thing people like to use, I have several ways of looking at these metric prefixes. Some people like mnemonics. Now, if you don't know what a mnemonic is, I have it listed here. A mnemonic is a memorization device to help us learn and memorize a certain topic. You may have gone through these in a high school class, but let's go over this simple one that I found representing some of our metric prefixes. So let's go over a mnemonic. And as I said, metric prefixes are used to represent decimal placements based upon factors of 10 from a basic unit. Let's look at a basic unit of length. The basic unit of length is the meter. And let's look at our mnemonic for help us understanding a little bit about metric prefixes and how we represent values of the meter based upon decimal placement. So this one is listed here, and I'll just say it. It's King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk Monday night. King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk Monday night. Some of you may have seen this one before. So let's think about where we're starting at. Unexpectedly is our base unit. That's our base. And we're looking at a meter. 1 meter. Okay. King, let's start at the very top. King, the K, is used in our mnemonic to represent the kilo. 1 kilo, 1 kilometer, well, kilo represents 1,000 of any base unit that we're considering. The base that we're considering is the meter. 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So let's move to the next one. Henry. Henry represents hecto. 1 hecto. We don't use this a lot. 1 hectometer is 100 meters. Hecto represents 100 of our base units. Died. Now this is where it gets a little confusing. Died is deca. This is deca. Again, we don't use a lot. We use kilo a lot. Don't use hecto or deca to a very large extent. 1 decameter has 10 meters associated with it. So we can see how these prefixes represent factors of 10 differences in our base unit. If we start with the meter, if we have 10 meters, that's 1 decameter. 100 meters is 1 hectometer. 1,000 meters is 1 kilometer. Let's move down below this now. Now we're going to look at smaller units of our base. And this is where it's a little bit confusing. Drinking. Now we're going to have smaller number of units of our base. This is deci. This is the unit deci. Okay, a couple of ways of thinking about a deci. Okay, I like to think of it as 1 meter has 10 decimeters in it. Or 1 decimeter is 1/10 of a meter. Are we good? Are we good? Do we see how this is changing? These are smaller units of our base. Chocolate is centi. So let's see, 1 meter has 100 centimeters in it. Or you could also say 1 centimeter has 1/100th of a meter. We're going to go through unit conversions using these, but we just want to start to think about these prefixes for the time being. Milk, milli. We probably have heard of a millimeter. There are 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. Monday. The other M is known as the micro. Sometimes we use a U, micro. You might see a U. It's the Greek symbol mu, actually. 1 meter. We can write this with a string of zeros. There's 1,000,000 micrometers in 1 meter, or a nicer way to represent it is using a power 10 to the 6th. Night N is the nano. Probably have heard of nanoscale. The nanometer. 1 meter is 10 to the 9th nanometers. So these are all of one way of memorizing your prefixes and how they're related to a base unit. Another way students like, and I'm going to show a problem solving using another scale method. I'm going to erase this. Is everybody good? So stop this, copy these down, look at them, and send me an email if you have a question. But we will go over more detail on how to use these in converting between units in chapter E7. For now, we're going to do a simple exercise of understanding our metric prefixes, and that's using a horizontal scale. So I like this. This is actually, I believe it might be in you'll be learning about this in your lab. I really do like this one. So this is cool. We have a horizontal scale. And here we're going to put our base unit. And we're going to go through an example. Because this is how we learn about how to move decimals. And if we move to this position, we're going to move to smaller ones. This is the centimeter, or the centi. Centi, 10 to the negative first. One more over, milli. It's actually 2 over, I'm sorry. Centi, this is 10 to the negative second is centimeter. I'm sorry, my mistake. 10 to the negative third is the millimeter. And if we move down here, 3, 4, 5, 6. 10 to the negative 6th is the micron. Centi, milli, micron. And again, this horizontal scale is really useful for when we start to move decimals. Let's move out in the opposite direction from our base. This is the kilo, 10 to the 3rd. And we're going to move a little bit further, 4, 5, 6. And this is one we didn't discuss in our mnemonic. That's the mega, and that's 10 to the 6th. So this is a nice way of using a horizontal scale for learning a little bit about metric prefixes. And I'm asking a question in today's PowerPoint. And we're going to look at mass. Let's look at a basic unit of mass, the gram. Okay, and we're going to look at a few questions. Question is, how many grams? Let's look at three different units. 1 kilogram. Okay, so this is where the horizontal scale is very useful. 1 kilogram. So one way of representing 1 kilogram is to put a decimal here, 1 kilogram. And we're going to move to our base unit, the gram. That's our base right here in the center. Here's the kilogram, 10 to the 3rd. So all we're going to do is move our decimal 1, 2, 3 positions to the right. So we're going to move it 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going to leave it like that. We'll talk about significant figures. 1 kilogram has 1,000 grams. That's using the horizontal scale. You could also verify this using our mnemonic that we talked about in our last few minutes. 1 milligram. 1 milligram. Now, the mega out here, this is capital M. This is where we get confused. This should be a capital M. This M is a lowercase m. That's the milligram. So let's write 1 milligram, 1.0 milligram. How many grams are in 1 milligram? Let's look at our horizontal scale. Here's our milligram. We should have another unit right there. I'm sorry. We're going to move this 3 positions. 1, 2, 3. We're moving our decimal 3 positions to the left. So let's write this as 1 milligram and move it 3 positions. 1, 2, 3. 0.001 gram. 1 milligram is 0.001 gram. And if you remember how we wrote scientific notation, we simply move this back 3 positions. 3 positions to the right. 1 times 10 to the negative 3rd grams. And that's that 10 to the negative 3rd. I wrote it right there in that horizontal scale. 1 microgram. 1 microgram. Now this uses the mu g. 1 microgram. How many grams? Well, this is where we're simply going to use 10 to the negative 6th. This tells us how many of our base units are equal to that conversion prefix. And that's how we can use metric prefixes to represent decimal placement when we're going through different variations or different factors of size effects for our different units and how we can use them for metric prefixes for SI units. That's the end of part one. Part two is going to cover volume, and we're going to go into significant figures. Thank you.